Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're going to unpack something pretty fundamental, something that shapes our lives, often without us even realizing it. We're talking about the rich mindset versus the poor mindset.
Hmm.
And look, this isn't just about how much money you have, not really. It's more about how you think, how you react to problems, the decisions you make, well, across your whole life.
Exactly.
We want to explore, why some people seem to consistently get ahead while others feel, well, kind of stuck.
That's right. And we've looked at a range of sources for this deep dive, sources that really lay out these contrasting ways of thinking in some fascinating detail.
Mm.
Our goal today is really to pull out the most important insights, give you something practical to understand your own
Yeah.
internal landscape, and maybe, just maybe, start shifting it if you want to.
Okay, so before we get into comparing them, let's just nail down what we actually mean by mindset. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot.
It does.
What is it really?
Well, at its core, a mindset is basically a collection of your thoughts, your beliefs, your habits, the things that, shape how you act.
Okay.
There's a psychologist, Dr. Carol Dweck. She's done amazing work here. She calls it the lens through which you see the world.
The lens, I like that.
Yeah. And she stresses that this lens, it affects everything. How you learn, how you deal with failure. I mean, everything.
Mhm.
Understanding that foundation is really key. It helps make sense of all the differences we're about to talk about.
Got it. Okay, so that's our foundation. Let's dive into the 7 core differences, the things that really seem to separate these two ways of thinking. And as we go through these, maybe just ask yourself, which side resonates more with me right now? So the first one we found popping up again and again in the sources. It's about how people face challenges. Opportunity versus obstacle.
Mm.
Like, does your first thought tend to be, okay, what can I learn here? Or is it more like, ugh, why is this happening to me?
This one's huge.
Yeah.
It really dictates your immediate reaction, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Think about something like the pandemic, a massive global event. For some, it was purely an obstacle, right? Everything shut down, plans ruined.
Yeah.
But for others, well, they saw opportunity embedded in that challenge. We saw people starting online businesses almost overnight, others investing when markets dipped, or learning new skills that were suddenly in demand.
Right, they adapted.
They adapted.
Huh.
They didn't just see the problem, they actively looked for, like, a solution within the problem. Whereas those maybe stuck in that obstacle mindset, they often just complained, felt paralyzed, waited for things to just go back.
That ability to reframe seems critical.
Absolutely.
And that kind of leads into the next point, doesn't it? Investing versus spending.
Yeah, it's closely related.
Is your focus on making what you have grow, or is it more about that immediate purchase, that instant thing?
You see this play out all the time. Let's say two people get an unexpected $1,000.
Okay.
Person A might immediately think, great, new phone, new clothes,
Yeah.
Something they can buy right now.
Instant gratification.
Exactly. Person B, maybe with more of an investing mindset, thinks, okay, how can this 1,000 make more? Maybe they buy an online course to learn a valuable skill. Maybe they put it in a simple investment. Fast forward 6 months, person B might have a new skill that's already starting to pay off, or their investment has grown a bit. Person A, well, they had the momentary thrill, but the money's gone, and often there's nothing lasting to show for it.
It's that difference between consumption and creation almost.
Yeah, or maybe creation of future value.
Yeah.
Understand compounding not just for money, but for knowledge and skills too.
Okay, this next one. I found this particularly interesting. Long-term thinking versus instant gratification.
Ah, yes, this is a big one.
One mindset is thinking, 5, 10 years down the road, planning, strategizing. The other, it's all about the results now, today, this week.
It really speaks to that saying, success is a marathon, not a sprint. You hear that a lot.
Right.
Or another analogy often used is the rich play chess, the poor play checkers.
Ooh, I like that. Explain that.
Well, checkers is about immediate moves, direct captures. Chess requires foresight, strategy, thinking several moves ahead, sometimes sacrificing a piece now for a bigger advantage later.
So, delaying gratification for a bigger payoff.
Precisely. It's about building something sustainable, something with lasting value, rather than just chasing those quick wins or immediate pleasures. That ability to see the bigger picture, the longer game, that's often cultivated.
Yeah, I can see how that's a major difference. It's tough in our world today, though, with everything being so instant.
It really is. It takes conscious effort.
Okay, what's the fourth distinction?
This one's about agency, responsibility versus blame.
Okay.
Is your default setting sort of, if it's going to happen, it's up to me, or is more like, well, it wasn't my fault because of X, Y, or Z?
Oof. That one hits home. It's
Oh,
so easy to point fingers sometimes, isn't it?
it's the path of least resistance, often. But here's the thing. When you blame external factors, the economy, your boss, your upbringing, whatever, you're essentially giving away your power. You're implicitly saying, I'm a victim of circumstances and I can't change things. But when you take responsibility, even for stuff you didn't directly cause, but that affects you,
Like your reaction to it.
exactly. Your reaction, your next steps,
Yep.
you take your power back, you shift from being passive to being active.
Yeah.
It's about saying, okay, this is the situation. What am I going to do about it?
That's a really powerful shift in perspective. Okay, so taking responsibility, how does that relate to how we use our time? You mentioned that earlier.
Right. That brings us to point 5. Learning versus entertainment.
How you spend your free time.
Pretty much. It boils down to intention.
Mm-hmm.
Are you using your downtime primarily to grow, to learn, to develop yourself? Or is it mostly about escaping, numbing out, just passing time?
So it's not saying entertainment is bad.
Not at all. Everyone needs downtime, relaxation. But it's about the balance and the purpose.
Yeah.
When you have free time, is your default to scroll social media mindlessly for hours, or do you sometimes choose to read a book, watch an educational video, work on a side project?
It's a direct question for you, the listener. When you're on YouTube or scrolling, are you escaping or are you trying to evolve?
That's a great way to put it. It's about conscious choice in how you invest those non-working hours.
Okay, that's a good gut check for all of us, I think. What's number 6?
Number 6 is about how we see others. Collaboration versus competition.
Ah, the pie analogy. Is there enough for everyone? Or if someone else wins, does that mean I lose?
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Is it a zero-sum game in your mind? What's really interesting is that, according to our sources, highly successful people tend to build strong networks. They actively look for ways to collaborate, to create win-win situations.
They see synergy.
Right. They understand that working together often achieves far more than working alone or against each other. That whole rising tide lifts all boats idea
Whereas the other mindset.
can often lead to isolation. Seeing everyone as a potential rival, being suspicious, guarding information, it limits opportunities for growth, for leverage, for shared success.
Okay, that makes sense. And the final one, number 7.
This one might be the most crucial of all. It's about your relationship with failure. Is it the fear of failure, or is it a love for growth?
So, what happens when things go wrong? Is failure the absolute end, or is it just feedback?
Precisely. For someone with a rich mindset, failure isn't devastating. It's data. It's information. It's a lesson learned on the path to success.
You hear stories about this all the time with famous entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. Think about people like Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, Steve Jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Their journeys are full of massive setbacks, rejections, even bankruptcies.
But they didn't stop.
That's the key. They didn't see failure as a final verdict on their abilities or their dreams. They saw it as part of the process. They learned, they adjusted, they kept going. That perseverance, that resilience in the face of setbacks, that's a hallmark of this growth-oriented mindset.
Wow. Okay, so those are the 7 big distinctions. But what's going on? Like scientifically, in our brains, how do these patterns get so ingrained?
That's where the science gets really cool. It comes down to something called neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity. Heard of it, but break it down.
Sure. So your brain isn't like a fixed piece of hardware. It's actually incredibly adaptable. It's constantly rewiring itself based on your thoughts, your experiences, your actions.
So it physically changes.
Yes. Neuroplasticity is literally the brain's ability to form new neural connections and pathways, and also to weaken old ones. So if you constantly think thoughts like, I'm not good enough or I'll never get ahead,
You're strengthening those pathways.
you got it. You're basically paving a neural highway for those negative thoughts, making them easier and more automatic to think.
Okay, but the flip side must be true too then.
Exactly. That's the hopeful part. The more you consciously practice rich thinking, seeing opportunities, thinking long-term, taking responsibility, learning from failure, the more you build and strengthen those neural pathways.
So you're literally rewiring your brain for success.
That's the essence of it. You're training your brain, making that positive, growth-oriented thinking your new default setting. It takes repetition, conscious effort, but it's possible.
Let's make this even more concrete. Can we talk about some real-life examples, stories that really show this mindset difference in action?
Definitely. A really powerful one is Steve Harvey.
The comedian and host, yeah, his story is incredible.
It really is. He talks openly about living in his car for 3 years. 3 years! He had almost nothing.
Wow.
But he had this unwavering belief. He apparently had a mantra he repeated. God didn't bring me this far to leave me. He focused on gratitude for what little he had, worked incredibly hard on his comedy, and just refused to give up on his dream, even when things looked completely hopeless.
And now he's worth a lot.
Over $200 million, reportedly.
Yeah.
His mindset wasn't just something that came after success. It was clearly the engine driving his journey out of incredibly difficult circumstances.
That's a great example of perseverance and belief. What about Robert Kiyosaki? His book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is almost entirely about this mindset shift.
Absolutely. That book struck such a chord globally because it framed financial success primarily as a function of mindset, not just education or hard work in the traditional sense.
He contrasts his two dads, right?
Exactly. His biological father, the poor dad, was highly educated, had a good job, but constantly struggled with money and had conventional views about work and security.
And the rich dad.
His friend's father, who lacked that formal education, but had a completely different mindset. He understood money, investing, taking calculated risks, the importance of financial literacy, and continuous learning.
And Kiyosaki's big takeaway.
One of the most powerful lines is, the poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them.
That's the core difference. Active versus passive income generation, fueled by a different way of thinking about assets and liabilities.
Precisely. It's a fundamental shift in perspective, driven entirely by mindset, how you view work, risk, assets, and learning.
Okay, these stories really brought it home. Let's maybe just take a breath here. For everyone listening, this deep dive, it isn't just information dump, it's really meant as an invitation, a moment for some self-reflection. As you've been listening, just take a second and ask yourself honestly, where do I naturally lean? Do I tend to spot the opportunity first, or does the obstacle loom larger? When I have free time, am I mostly looking to grow or just escape? And that responsibility piece, do I truly feel like I own my life's direction?
And it's really important to add, there should be absolutely zero shame or judgment if you recognize patterns of the poor mindset in yourself. Honestly, most of us have elements of both.
That's true.
Awareness is the vital first step. You can't change what you don't acknowledge, right? The beauty is, today, right now, you can actually decide to start thinking differently. You can choose to consciously build that rich mindset, one thought, one choice at a time.
So this deep dive, really, it's about providing a framework, a way to maybe refine your own internal compass. Because the core difference, the thing that separates a life that feels like it's thriving from one that feels stuck, it's not always about the money in the bank account. It's often about the quality of your insight.
Yep.
It's about how you think when nobody's looking, how you talk to yourself, how you react instinctively. And the good news is you have the power to start shifting that today. And you might be surprised how your future starts to follow that shift.
Absolutely. And remember, this isn't like a one and done thing. It's a journey of continuous growth. Keep exploring these ideas. Keep questioning your own assumptions. Keep challenging that lens, like Dr. Dweck said, through which you see the world. We really hope you keep applying these insights because truly, thinking rich in this broader sense is what allows you to build a life with more freedom, more possibility, more, well, richness in every sense.